Marrying a plumber. How humiliating. My parents scoffed. My sister cackled. Who would be seen dead at that wedding? They turned their backs. I walked down the aisle alone until our ceremony aired on national TV. 110 missed calls. Have you ever been so utterly dismissed, so publicly humiliated by your own family, that you thought you'd never recover? You know, that soul-crushing feeling that you're simply not enough? Well, let me tell you, sometimes, the universe delivers a moment of comeuppance so shocking, so utterly perfect, you almost can't believe it's real. My name is Abigail Monroe, I'm 34, and I'm a pediatric nurse in Savannah, Georgia. And right now, I'm sitting in the East Room of the White House. The air is thick with history. You can practically smell the floor wax, the old wood, and thousands of roses. Overhead, chandeliers sparkle so brightly they make the medals on the uniforms in the front row gleam like actual stars. My hands are gripping my clutch purse so hard my knuckles are white. I mean, bone white. Up at the podium, the President of the United States clears his throat. He's there to honor my husband, Caleb. He places that deep blue ribbon around Caleb's neck, and the heavy gold star rests against his chest. The Medal of Honor. The applause starts as this quiet ripple, then just explodes into a roaring wave. Every single person in this room, generals, senators, genuine heroes, they're all on their feet, looking at my husband. The man who fixes pipes for a living. The man who made me tea at 2 a.m. when my entire world felt like it was falling apart. Caleb steps to the microphone. He looks absolutely terrified, more terrified than I ever saw him when he was in actual combat. He pulls out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. Oh, we'd practiced this speech for 3 nights straight at our kitchen table. It was formal, it was safe. He looks down at the paper, then slowly, his eyes lift. He finds mine in the crowd. And then, into the microphone, he says, "Permission to go off script, sir." The president just smiles and nods. Caleb takes a deep breath. 3 years ago, he says, his voice deep and steady, I thought courage meant running toward gunfire. I was wrong. The entire room goes silent, but this silence is different. It's sharp, electric. My wife taught me that true courage isn't about combat. It's about choosing love, even when your own family tells you that you are not enough. My clutch purse starts to buzz against my thigh. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I don't even need to look to know who it is. The screen lights up. Mom. 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 110 missed calls since the broadcast started. 34 years I waited for them to call me, to see me, and they chose today. I just let it ring. Transition to past tense, it all started 10 weeks earlier. I was standing in a bridal suite in Savannah, holding my breath. The morning sun was streaming through the antique glass windows, and dust motes were dancing in the light. It should have been beautiful. My best friend, Louise, was standing behind me, holding a glass of mimosa. My Aunt Maggie was in the corner, meticulously going over a checklist. So, the circus is confirmed. Louise asked quietly. I looked at my reflection. I hadn't even put on my dress yet. I was almost afraid to. Mom said she might be late, I managed to say. Louise and Maggie exchanged a look in the mirror. I saw it. Diana called me last night, Maggie said, her voice careful. She asked about the seating chart again. And I asked. I prompted, already knowing. She wanted to know if the plumber's family would be sitting near them. That old, familiar sting hit me in the chest. Not surprise, just the dull, aching disappointment I knew so well. I told her there's only one family table, Maggie continued, and everyone is equal at it. Which is why she's running late, I suppose, Louise muttered under her breath. My phone buzzed on the vanity. A text from my sister, Savannah. OMG, can't believe you're actually doing this. Oh. Mom is literally dying. Anyway, I'm live streaming the party prep so I can't come early. Have fun with your plumber, babe. Skull emoji. I just stared at the screen. 2 million followers. That's how many people followed my sister's curated life online. 2 million people just watched her laugh at my wedding. Did she just, your marriage? Louise asked, reading over my shoulder. I put the phone face down. I forced a smile. It felt tight on my face, almost brittle. "Let's do this," I said. I stood up and walked toward the white dress hanging in the corner. It was simple. Mom had called it plain, but I absolutely adored it. Louise went out to check on the venue. Maggie patted the empty spot on the settee next to her. "Come here, Abby," she said. I sat down, the silk of my robe rustling. Maggie smelled like lavender and old paper. It was the scent of safety. "I want to show you something," she said, opening her phone to Instagram. It was Savannah's story from 10 minutes ago. "Okay, you all. So, this is the venue for Mom and Dad's 30th anniversary party." Savannah chirped on screen. "Can you believe it? 30 years. August 15th. Mark your calendars. August 15th. That was 2 months away. Your mother has been planning it since January," Maggie said softly. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." I looked at the video. My mother was in the background, directing a florist, looking so happy, so focused. She'd been planning a party for 6 months and hadn't even invited me. Maggie took my hand, her skin dry and warm. "Diana sees herself in Savannah," Maggie said. "She sees her fears in you. It was never about your worth, Abby. It was about her wounds." "That doesn't make it hurt less," I whispered. "No," Maggie agreed. "It doesn't. But today isn't about Diana. Today is about you and that man who looks at you like you hung the moon." "I thought if they just gave him a chance," I started, "if they met him properly." "Honey, they've had chances," Maggie interrupted. "Remember the dinner?" Oh, I remembered. Mom asking Caleb if he could afford a suit. Mom asking if plumbing was just a phase. "She's not going to see him, Abby. No matter what he does." I nodded. I knew she was right. 4 hours later, a string quartet began to play Pachelbel's Canon. I stood behind the glass doors of the garden venue. The late afternoon sun was golden, and the air smelled of magnolia and jasmine. It was perfect. I looked down the aisle. Caleb was waiting, looking a little uncomfortable in his suit, but when he saw me, his shoulders dropped. He smiled. It was a small, private smile, just for me. Then I looked to the left, at the front row on the bride's side. 4 white wooden chairs, reserved signs tied with silk ribbon. One for Gerald Thornton, one for Diana Thornton, one for Savannah Thornton, one for Savannah's date. Empty. All of them. They weren't late. They weren't coming. I felt cold. It was 80 degrees in Savannah, but I was freezing. Guests were shifting. I could hear the gravel crunching as people turned to look. They saw the empty chairs, too. Louise was beside me, ready to walk me down. He squeezed my arm. "Hey," he whispered. "Look at me. Those chairs are empty because they are empty inside, Abby, not you." "I know," I said, but my voice shook. I looked back at Caleb. He saw the chairs. His jaw tightened. Then he did something that was absolutely not in the rehearsal. He stepped off the altar. The music faltered. Guests gasped. Caleb walked down the aisle, his boots crunching on the white gravel. He walked past his uncle, past his Navy friends, past the confused faces of my co-workers. He walked all the way to me. He stopped in front of me and took my hands. His hands were rough and warm. "Changed my mind," he said. "About what?" I asked, not waiting at the end. He looked over my shoulder at the empty chairs. He didn't look angry. He looked sad, but not for us. For them. "We walk together," he said, "or we don't walk at all." He turned to the guests, gesturing to the right side of the aisle, the side that was full. His Uncle Jim was wiping his eyes. His friends from the service were standing at attention. Maggie was beaming. "That's family, Abs," he said quietly. "Right there. Look at them." I looked. I really looked at them. I saw love. I saw people who showed up. "Don't look at the empty chairs," Caleb whispered. "Look at the ones that are full." I took a breath. I squeezed his hand. "Okay," I said. And we walked down the aisle together, side by side. When the officiant asked if I took this man, I said, "I do." Loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I didn't check my phone until the reception was over. 23 missed calls and 1 Instagram notification. Savannah was live streaming the party prep. My mother was holding up a color swatch and laughing. She didn't look like a woman who was missing her daughter's wedding. She looked like a woman who was exactly where she wanted to be. I put the phone in my pocket. I looked at my husband. He was laughing at something Louise said. I thought I was done hoping. I thought the empty chairs were the end of it. I didn't know that the real test was just beginning. 3 weeks after the wedding, cardboard boxes were still stacked in the living room of our rental house. It wasn't a palace. It was a 2-bedroom bungalow on the edge of town, with a porch that listed slightly to the left and a water heater that hummed a low, constant tune. But it was ours. I was standing on a step stool, trying to find the right spot for a framed photo of our wedding day. It was a black and white shot of us walking back up the aisle, just Caleb and me. The empty chairs were blurry in the background, but I knew they were there. A little to the left, Caleb said. He was sitting on the floor, assembling a bookshelf, a screwdriver in one hand, a bottle of beer near his knee. He looked at home. He looked permanent. Here? I asked, sliding the frame an inch. Perfect. I stepped down. I looked at the photo. In the picture, we looked invincible. In the picture, nobody could hurt us. But standing in my living room, looking at the empty walls around it, I felt that ache again. It was like a phantom limb. I kept reaching for a family that had been amputated. Caleb stood up and brushed the sawdust off his jeans. He came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. You're doing it again, he whispered. Doing what? Looking at what's missing instead of what's there. I leaned back into him. He was solid, warm. It's just quiet, I said. Usually by now, Mom would be calling to tell me what I did wrong with the thank you notes, or Savannah would be texting me links to weight loss teas. And you miss that. I miss belonging, Caleb. Even if it was bad belonging. It's hard to explain. He turned me around, his eyes dark and serious. We're building our own belonging, Abby. Brick by brick. He kissed me. It tasted like beer and promise. For a moment, I believed him. I really believed that he was enough, that we were enough. Then my phone rang on the kitchen counter. The ringtone cut through the moment like a knife. It was the specific ringtone I had assigned to her years ago, the opening bars of the Imperial March. I looked at Caleb. He sighed and let me go. I walked into the kitchen. The screen was flashing. Mom. I took a deep breath. I answered. Hello, Mom. Abigail. Her voice was crisp. No hello. No congratulations. Just business. Your Aunt Maggie tells me you went through with it. I got married, Mom. Yes. To the plumber. To Caleb. There was a pause. I could hear the faint clinking of ice in a glass. It was 5 in the afternoon, which meant she was on her second gin and tonic. Well, she said, and I could hear the shrug in her voice, I suppose what's done is done. Your father and I were wondering if perhaps, once things settle, we could have you both for dinner. I gripped the edge of the counter. This was it. The olive branch. The moment of reconciliation I'd played out in my head 1,000 times. That would be nice, Mom, I said. Wonderful. I'll have Savannah check her schedule. We want everyone there. Everyone. That meant Savannah would be the judge. Savannah would decide if Caleb was worthy of being in the same room as the Thorntons. Oh, and sweetie, Diana added, her voice dropping into that sugary tone that always signaled danger. Don't forget our anniversary party is next month, the 15th. You can bring him if you'd like. Bring him. Like he was a stray dog I'd adopted. I'd like that, Mom. Good. Now, I should mention it's cocktail attire. Do make sure he owns a proper suit, not work clothes. We're having the photographer from Savannah Monthly there, and I don't want any awkwardness. I closed my eyes. There it was. The condition. Come, but only if you can pretend to be what we want. Come, but hide the rough edges. He has a suit, Mom. Good. I'll see you Tuesday then, 7 sharp. Don't be late. The line went dead. I put the phone down. Caleb was leaning against the doorframe, watching me. How bad was it? He asked. She invited us to dinner and the anniversary party. That's good, right? She wants to make sure you wear a proper suit. Caleb's jaw tightened. A small muscle jumped in his cheek. I own a suit, he said quietly. I know you do. Then what's the problem? The problem is, I don't know if I want to go anymore. But that was a lie. We both knew I'd go. I always went. I always showed up, hoping that this time it would be different. A week later, I came home early from a double shift at the hospital. My feet were throbbing, and I smelled like antiseptic. Caleb's truck was already in the driveway, which was unusual. He usually worked until the sun went down. I unlocked the front door. Caleb was sitting on the couch, still in his work clothes. His boots were muddy, but he hadn't taken them off. He was staring at a thick, cream-colored envelope in his hands. The television was off. The house was silent. Caleb, I said, dropping my bag. He jumped, looking at me like he'd forgotten I lived there. He folded the letter quickly and shoved it into his pocket. Hey, he said, his voice rough. What's that? Nothing. Just old army stuff. Nothing urgent. I walked over to him and sat down on the coffee table so I could look him in the eye. He looked pale beneath his tan. His eyes were distant, the way they got sometimes when a car backfired or a helicopter flew too low. You're lying, I said softly. It's complicated, Abs. He stood up abruptly and walked over to the corner of the room where he kept his large red metal toolbox. It was the one thing he refused to keep in the garage. He said he liked having his tools close. He opened the toolbox, placed the envelope inside the top tray, and closed the lid, snapping the latches shut. The metallic click echoed in the quiet room. You kept it, I said. You didn't throw it away. He turned back to me. He looked tired. It's something from a long time ago. Before we met. Something I didn't think would ever matter again. Does it matter now? He looked at the toolbox, then back at me. They want to give me something I don't deserve. I frowned. I looked at this man who worked 60 hours a week. This man who had held me while I cried over my family. This man who fixed everything he touched. I don't know what you did, Caleb, I said, but I know who you are. Whatever they want to give you, I promise you deserve more. He pulled me into a hug, holding me so tight I could feel his heart hammering against my chest, faster than normal. Tomorrow, I'd forget about the letter. Life would move on. But it was there, in the red toolbox in the corner of our living room, waiting. Tuesday came. We drove to my parents' house in silence. Caleb was wearing his suit. It was charcoal grey and fit him perfectly. He looked handsome. He looked dignified. He looked nothing like the stereotype my mother had built in her head. We pulled into the circular driveway. The house loomed above us, a brick colonial mansion with white columns and manicured boxwood hedges. It was a house designed to impress, not to comfort. Ready? Caleb asked, killing the engine. No. Let's go. The dinner was exactly as I feared. We sat in the formal dining room, the air conditioning set to Arctic. The only sound was the scrape of silver forks on bone china. My father, Gerald, sat at the head of the table, checking his email on his phone under the table. He'd mumbled a hello when we entered and hadn't spoken since. My sister, Savannah, sat across from me, scrolling through TikTok, the blue light from her phone illuminating her perfect spray tan. So, Caleb, my mother, Diana, said, breaking the silence. She dabbed her mouth with a linen napkin. Tell us about the plumbing business. It's good, Caleb said steadily. It's busy season. And is there upward mobility in that field? My father looked up briefly. Diana, he warned. What? I'm just curious. It's a legitimate question. I simply want to know if he plans to be under sinks for the rest of his life. Caleb put his fork down. He looked my mother in the eye. I own 10% of the company. My uncle's will leaves me another 40 when he retires. We have 12 trucks and cover 3 counties. My mother's eyebrows rose. I saw her doing the mental math. She was calculating his worth, not his character. His assets. Oh. So it's a family business. Yes, Savannah suddenly looked up from her phone. She let out a high-pitched laugh. Oh my God, Abby. Did you see my story about the anniversary party? We're having ice sculptures. She turned the screen toward me. A video of a swan made of ice. Mom got them flown in from Atlanta. 50 guests. It's going to be iconic. My mother preened. Savannah has been such a help with the planning. All the best families in Savannah will be there. I looked past my mother to the wall behind her. The gallery wall. It was covered in framed photos, dozens of them. There was Savannah winning Little Miss Georgia. Savannah at her sweet 16. Savannah graduating from fashion school in New York. Savannah receiving an influencer award. And there, in the bottom corner, partially hidden by a vase of hydrangeas, was one photo of me. My nursing school graduation. I looked tired in the photo. My cap was crooked. I remembered the caption my mother had posted on Facebook that day. Our little worker bee. Maybe she'll find a nice doctor at the hospital. You are coming, aren't you? Diana asked, snapping me back to the present. I told everyone you would be there. She told everyone. Because a married daughter looked better for the brand than an estranged one. I would love to come, Mom, I said. My voice sounded small. Good, because the photographer needs a head count. And do try to do something with your hair, Abigail. It looks so sensible. Caleb reached under the table and took my hand. His grip was hard, almost painful. We'll be there, he said. His voice deep and flat. Later, in the car, the silence was heavy. I watched the streetlights blur past. I'm sorry about that, I said. About what? Upward mobility. The interrogation. The hair comment. I've survived worse interrogations, Abs, Caleb said. I know, but I keep thinking if I just keep showing up, if I just keep trying to be what they want. Do you think it will ever be enough? He asked. He didn't look at me, keeping his eyes on the road. I didn't answer because, looking at the dark road ahead, I finally let myself think the thought I'd been pushing away for 30 years. No. It would never be enough. But I wasn't ready to stop trying. Not yet. I had one more party to survive. One more chance to prove I belonged in that house. I looked at Caleb's profile in the dashboard lights. He was steady. He was mine. And he was keeping a secret in a red toolbox that was about to change everything. The blue light from my phone was the only thing illuminating the bedroom. It was 2 a.m, and the digital clock on the nightstand blinked red in the darkness. Beside me, Caleb was deep in sleep, his breathing a steady, rhythmic sound that usually lulled me to rest. But tonight, sleep felt like a country I had been exiled from. I was doing the one thing I knew I shouldn't do. I was scrolling. My thumb hovered over the screen. Instagram. My sister's profile. Savannah had posted a story 3 hours ago. I tapped the circle. The video filled the screen. It was a selfie video, taken in my parents' kitchen. The lighting was perfect, ring light bright, washing out every pore and imperfection. Savannah was leaning her head on my mother's shoulder. Diana was beaming, looking younger than her 61 years thanks to the filter and a recent trip to the dermatologist. Party planning with my best friend, also known as Mom, Savannah's caption read in scrolling pink letters. 30th anniversary prep is no joke. #relationship goals #mother-daughter goals. I felt a physical pinch in my chest. Best friend. My mother had never been my best friend. She had been my manager, my critic, and my judge, but never my friend. I looked at the comments. Hundreds of them already. You two look like sisters. So gorgeous. Where is the other sister? My finger froze. Someone had asked a user named Chloe249. I tapped to see the replies. Savannah had replied. She's busy with her plumber hubby. Skull emoji. Crying laughing emoji. The phone shook in my hand. Plumber hubby. 2 million people. 2 million strangers saw that comment. She made it sound like a joke. Like Caleb was a punchline. Like my life was a sitcom blooper reel compared to her feature film. And then I saw the comment underneath Savannah's. It was from Diana. My sweet girl. Can't wait for the big night. Nothing about me. Nothing correcting her. Nothing defending the man I married. I clicked on Diana's profile. I went to her photos. I scrolled back past the recent shots of the garden club luncheon and the new Mercedes my father had bought her. I scrolled back 6 years. I found it. My nursing graduation photo. It was tucked away in the corner of her grid, forgotten. I tapped it. Our Abby graduated today. So proud of our little worker bee. Maybe she'll find a nice doctor at the hospital. Winky face. Worker bee. That was what I was to them. I was the drone, the one who worked, the one who was practical. Savannah was the queen. She existed to be admired. I existed to be useful. And the comment about the doctor, even in my moment of academic triumph, my value was tied to the man I might attract. Well, I had found a man. He just wasn't the accessory she wanted. The mattress shifted. Caleb groaned low in his throat and rolled over, his arm heavy across my waist. Abs, he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. You okay? I quickly turned the phone over, pressing the screen against the sheet to hide the light. Yeah, I whispered. Just thinking. He blinked, his eyes opening. Even in the dark, I could feel him studying me. He always knew when the wheels were turning. About what? He asked. Whether I should keep trying. He didn't ask what I meant. He knew. He pushed himself up on one elbow, the sheet falling to his waist. What are you deciding? I don't know yet. But lying there in the dark, with the ghost of that skull emoji burned into my retinas, I thought I was starting to know. A week later, on a Tuesday afternoon, I was back in the belly of the beast. Diana had called me at the hospital during my lunch break. She said she needed help with the party favors for the anniversary celebration. I walked into the living room and stopped. It looked like a luxury gift shop had exploded. Rolls of silver ribbon, mountains of tissue paper, and boxes of custom chocolates imported from Belgium. My mother was sitting on the white sofa, holding a clipboard. Savannah was sprawled on the chaise lounge, taking a photo of a candle. You're late, Diana said without looking up. I had a shift, Mom. People get sick on Tuesdays, too. I walked over and picked up a silver bag. So, what are we doing? Stuffing bags. Something like that, Diana said. She stood up and walked around me, eyeing my scrubs with distaste. Actually, I wanted to talk about your outfit for the party. I have a dress, I said. The navy one. I wore it to the rehearsal dinner. Diana and Savannah exchanged a look. It was a look I knew well, the silent communication of the Thornton women. Navy is so safe, Savannah drawled. She sat up, tapping her long acrylic nails against her phone screen. Maybe that's the problem, sweetie, Diana said, sighing. You always choose safe. We were thinking perhaps you could wear something from Savannah's new collection. I blinked. Savannah has a clothing line. Capsule collection, sis, Savannah said, rolling her eyes. Keep up. She turned her phone toward me. On the screen was a dress. It was beige, tight, and had cutouts at the waist. It was a dress for someone who lived their life on a yacht, not someone who spent 12 hours a day on her feet. This would look so good on you. Savannah said. I can get you a sample size. It might be a little snug, but Spanx exists for a reason. I stepped back. That's not really me. Diana crossed her arms. Maybe that's the problem, Abigail. You refuse to elevate yourself. Elevate myself. As if I were a piece of furniture that needed reupholstering. I forgot to mention, Diana continued, her tone breezy. The photographer from Savannah Monthly is coming. They're doing a feature on successful Savannah families. I froze. A feature? I repeated. Yes, it's a great honor. So, you'll understand why I need everyone looking their best. We can't have you looking drab. Drab. I looked at the photo wall behind her. I looked at the graduation photo of the worker bee. Savannah chimed in, Mom wants professional photos, abs, not like your wedding photos. I felt a flush of heat rise up my neck. What was wrong with my wedding photos? They were lovely, sweetie, Diana said quickly. Very rustic. But this is different. This is for the magazine. Rustic. It was a polite southern way of saying cheap, unrefined, not good enough. My wedding. The day I walked down the aisle toward the man I loved. The day I laughed and cried and felt beautiful. She called it rustic. I looked at the silver ribbons. I looked at the Belgian chocolates. I looked at my mother, who was more concerned with the magazine spread than her daughter's feelings. I dropped the silver bag on the coffee table. I should go, I said. Diana frowned. But the party favors. We haven't even started. I have a shift early tomorrow. I didn't. I was off tomorrow. I turned and walked toward the door. My hands were shaking. Abigail. Diana called after me, her voice sharpening. Don't walk away when I'm speaking to you. I kept walking. I opened the heavy oak door and stepped out into the humid Georgia afternoon. I didn't look back. I drove home with the radio off, the silence ringing in my ears. When I got to our bungalow, Caleb was on the back porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange. The cicadas were singing their electric song in the trees. He had 2 bottles of beer sitting on the railing, condensation dripping down the glass. I walked out and took one. I didn't say anything. I just drank half the bottle in one long pull. He watched me. He was wearing his work t-shirt, stained with grease and PVC glue. He looked tired, but his eyes were alert. That bad? He asked. I sat down on the porch swing. It creaked under my weight. She called our wedding rustic. Caleb took a sip of his beer. Is that bad? In Diana language, it is. It means cheap. It means embarrassing. I told him everything. The dress with the cutouts, the magazine photographer, the worker bee comment, the way they looked at each other like I was a problem to be solved. He listened. He didn't interrupt. He just sat on the railing, his silhouette framed against the dying light. When I finished, I stared at my hands. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know. Yes, you do. I looked up at him. He wasn't looking at the sunset. He was looking right at me. I want to stop trying, I whispered. The words hung in the humid air. Then stop, he said. But they're my family, Caleb. Are they? I flinched. Maggie said something to me on the wedding day, I said. She told me Diana sees her fears in me. What does that mean to you? It means she can't love me because I remind her of what she's afraid of being. Ordinary. Invisible. Unimportant. I took a breath. And I am all those things to her. Caleb set his beer down on the railing with a clink. He stood up and walked over to the swing. He crouched down in front of me so we were eye level. You are not those things, he said. His voice was low and fierce. I know, I said automatically. I mean, I'm trying to know. Let me tell you something, Caleb said. I've seen men under fire. I've seen the ones who break and the ones who don't. Caleb, I started. He rarely talked about the service. He shook his head. Listen to me. You don't break, abs. Every hit they land on you. Every nasty comment. Every time they overlook you, you get back up. You go to work and you save sick kids and you come home and you love me. That is not ordinary. That is extraordinary. I looked into his eyes. They were dark and steady. He didn't give compliments easily. He didn't say things just to make me feel better. If he said the sky was green, I would check the window because he didn't lie. Why was it so hard to believe him? Why was Diana's voice in my head louder than his? I thought about the last 34 years. Every pageant I lost. Every report card that was good but not good enough. Every time I reached for my mother and found her back turned. I am still here. I am still standing. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of cut grass and rain. I'm not going to the party, I said. Okay. I mean it. I'm not going. I'm done trying to make them love me the way I need them to. That's different, Caleb said. Yeah, it is. I didn't say I was done with them entirely. That felt too big, too final. But this, choosing not to participate in my own humiliation, this was a start. I stood up. I felt lighter, like I had put down a heavy backpack I had been carrying for miles. Caleb stood up with me. He took my hand. I'm proud of you, he said. I looked at the house, our rustic rental house. It was small. It was messy. But it was real. Let's go inside, I said. We walked into the kitchen, leaving the beer bottles on the porch railing, sweating in the heat. I didn't know it then, but in the red toolbox in the living room, the letter was waiting. And the date on that letter was about to change everything. The 15th of August was coming, and I had just cleared my schedule. 2 weeks passed. The humidity in Savannah settled in like a wet wool blanket, heavy and suffocating. But inside my chest, for the first time in my life, the air felt clear. I was sitting in the hospital cafeteria with Louise, poking at a plastic container of salad. You look different, Louise said, taking a bite of his sandwich. Bad different? I asked. No, good different. Like you finally exhaled. I smiled. I actually felt it. Since the night on the porch, since I decided to stop auditioning for the role of the good daughter, I slept better. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I stopped rehearsing conversations with my mother in the shower. I guess I just stopped holding my breath, I said. Louise nodded. He pointed a fry at me. Just remember, nature abhors a vacuum. When you stop chasing them, they usually start chasing you, just to see why you stopped running. I know, but right now the silence is nice. But there was a gap in the silence. A small, growing crack in my new piece. Caleb. He was coming home later than usual. Sometimes I would wake up at 3 in the morning and his side of the bed would be cold. I'd find him sitting on the back porch, staring into the darkness, his shoulders tight. And there were the phone calls. He would take them outside, speaking in a low voice that dropped away whenever I opened the door. He moved the red toolbox. It used to be in the corner behind the armchair. Now it was tucked behind the curtains. Something was happening. And for the first time since we met, he wasn't telling me what it was. 3 days later, the sky broke open. It was a classic Georgia summer storm, the kind that turns the afternoon sky a bruised purple and shakes the window panes. I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables when the lights flickered once, then died. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. The house plunged into a grey gloom. Great, I muttered. I wiped my hands on a towel. I needed a flashlight. We kept one in the utility drawer, but the batteries were dead. I remembered seeing Caleb put a heavy-duty tactical flashlight in his toolbox. I walked into the living room. The rain was hammering against the roof, loud as applause. I went to the corner. I pulled the heavy red metal box out from behind the curtain. It was locked. Caleb never locked his tools. He said locks were for people who had something to hide or something to steal. I tugged on the lid. Locked tight. I looked around. Caleb's keys were in the bowl by the door. He had taken the spare truck keys today. I hesitated. I should wait for him. It was his box. But the house was getting darker, and I didn't want to cook in the dark. Plus, there was a small, nagging voice in the back of my head. The voice that wondered about the late nights and the whispered calls. I grabbed the keys. I tried the small silver one. It didn't fit. I tried the square brass one. Click. The latch sprang open. I lifted the heavy lid. The smell of grease and metal wafted up. The flashlight was right on top. A black, heavy mag light. But underneath it, resting on a bed of wrenches and screwdrivers, was the envelope. The cream-colored envelope he had hidden weeks ago. I picked up the flashlight. I should have just taken it and closed the lid, but my hand moved on its own. I picked up the envelope. It was heavy, much heavier than a normal letter. The return address was embossed in black ink, Office of the Secretary of Defense, Washington, D.C. My breath hitched. Secretary of Defense. Why was the Pentagon writing to a plumber in Savannah? I sat back on my heels. The thunder rattled the floorboards beneath me. I pulled the letter out. The paper was thick, expensive. Official. Dear Mr. Monroe, it is my distinct honor to inform you that you have been approved for the Medal of Honor for your actions on October 4, 2022, in the Korangal Valley, Afghanistan. I stopped reading. I blinked. I read it again. Medal of Honor. My hand started to shake. The paper rattled. I was a nurse. I knew about medical discharges. I knew about Purple Hearts. But the Medal of Honor. That was the highest military decoration in the United States. It was the award given to legends, to people they made movies about. I looked at the number. Only 3,525 people had ever received it in the history of the country. And my husband was one of them. I forced my eyes back to the page. There was a citation attached, a summary of what he had done. Under heavy enemy fire, Staff Sergeant Monroe provided suppressive fire for 45 minutes, allowing medics to reach wounded personnel. Personally carried 3 wounded soldiers to safety, one by one, across 200 yards of exposed terrain. I closed my eyes. I pictured the football field at the high school. 200 yards was 2 football fields, under fire. Returned to the engagement zone to retrieve the body of a fallen comrade so no man was left behind. Sustained multiple gunshot wounds, but continued to provide cover until the extraction was complete. His actions resulted in the survival of 12 American service members. I lowered the paper. The room was spinning. 12 people were alive today. 12 families still had their sons and fathers because of the man who fixed my leaky faucet. The man who was afraid to wear a suit to my parents' house because he didn't want to embarrass me. I remembered what he said, "They want to give me something I don't deserve." He had been shot twice and he went back for a body. The front door opened. A gust of wind and rain blew into the hallway. Heavy boots stepped onto the wood floor. "Abs!" Caleb called out. "Power's out on the whole block." He walked into the living room, shaking water from his hair. He saw me. He saw the open toolbox. He saw the cream-colored paper in my hand. He froze. His face went completely still. It was a look I had never seen before. It wasn't anger. It was resignation. "Caleb," I whispered. He didn't move. He stood there, dripping water onto the rug. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to," he said. His voice was low, barely audible over the rain. "The Medal of Honor, Caleb. The Medal of Honor." He walked toward me slowly. He moved like he was approaching a frightened animal. Or maybe like he was the frightened one. "I didn't want it to change things," he said. "Change what things?" "The way you look at me. The way anyone looks at me." I stood up. The letter was still clutched in my hand. "You saved 12 people." "I couldn't save everyone." The pain in his voice cracked the air. I saw it then. The shadow he lived with, the ghosts of the ones who didn't make it. I dropped the letter and threw my arms around him. His shirt was cold and wet, but his body was warm. He hesitated for a second. Then he buried his face in my neck. He held me so tight it almost hurt. We stood there in the dark living room while the storm raged outside, holding on to each other. After a long time, we sat on the couch. The power was still out. I lit a candle on the coffee table. The flame cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. The letter lay between us. I picked it up again. I smoothed out the wrinkles my gripping fingers had made. I looked at the date in the second paragraph. "The President of the United States will present this award at a ceremony at the White House on August 15th at 10 o'clock in the morning." August 15th. The date pricked at my memory. Why did I know that date? August 15th. I looked at Caleb. He was staring at the candle flame. "Caleb," I said. "Yeah. August 15th. That's the day of the ceremony." He nodded. "Yeah, that's also my parents' anniversary party." He blinked. He looked at me blankly. Then recognition dawned on his face. "Oh, I forgot." Of course he forgot. He had been carrying the weight of the war in his pocket. He didn't have space for Diana Thornton's social calendar. "So you're saying," he started. "I'm saying I can't go to their party. If I go to the ceremony with you, which of course I am going, I physically cannot be in Savannah for the party." "Would you have gone anyway?" he asked. After everything. I thought about it. I thought about the decision I made on the porch to stop trying. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me still wanted to go, just to show them I wasn't broken. But now I have a reason, I said. A real reason. A reason no one can argue with. Caleb leaned forward. That's not why this is happening, Abby. This isn't an excuse note. I know, I said quickly. I know, but I felt a bubble of something rise in my chest. It felt like hysteria, or maybe relief. My parents don't want me at their party. They want a version of me that doesn't exist. And now I have the most valid excuse in the world. My husband is meeting the president. Caleb watched me. The candlelight reflected in his dark eyes. You're coming, right? He asked softly. To the ceremony. Are you serious, Caleb? Of course I'm coming. I'd walk to Washington if I had to. Even though it'll be on TV, he said. I paused. TV. National broadcast. He pressed. Everyone will know. Know what? That I'm not just a plumber. I looked at him, really looked at him, and then the realization hit me like a physical blow. Everyone will know. My mother, who called him the plumber with a sneer. Savannah, who posted Lowell plumber hubby to 2 million people. My father, who sat silent while they mocked him. They were going to be at a party, surrounded by the elite of Savannah. And my husband was going to be on national television. It was going to be broadcast live. A dark thrill curled in my stomach. It was not a nice feeling. It was not the feeling of a good daughter, or a peaceful woman. It was the feeling of someone who had been holding a winning lottery ticket while everyone called her poor. I picked up the letter. I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Let them know, I whispered. Caleb frowned. He saw the look on my face. Abby. I smiled. It felt sharp. We are going to Washington, Caleb. And we are going to stand in the front row. I blew out the candle. The room went black, but the afterimage of the flame burned bright in my eyes. I finally had the ammunition I needed, and I could not wait to fire it. The next day, I met Louise and Aunt Maggie for lunch at a small bistro near the hospital. The air conditioning was humming, and the smell of fried green tomatoes hung in the air. I placed the cream-colored envelope on the center of the table. Louise picked it up. He was midway through chewing a bite of his club sandwich. He opened the flap, pulled out the letter, and began to read. He stopped chewing. He put the sandwich down. He looked at the letter. Then he looked at me. Then he looked at the letter again. He choked. He grabbed his iced tea and drank half the glass, coughing as he slammed it back down. Abby, he wheezed, his eyes watering. Are you serious? I nodded. Maggie took the letter from his shaking hand. She put on her reading glasses. Her eyes scanned the page. Her hand went to her mouth, covering a gasp. The Medal of Honor, she whispered. Her voice was thick with emotion. The Medal of Honor from the President. Wait, Louise said, holding up a hand. Wait a second. Your plumber husband, the guy Diana wouldn't let sit in the good armchair because of his work pants. He's a war hero. He's not just a hero, Louise, I said softly. He saved 12 people. Louise ran a hand through his hair. I feel like I need to stand up or salute or something. I feel bad for making fun of his truck. Maggie looked up from the letter. Her eyes were sharp. Abigail, have you looked at the date? I took a sip of my water. Yes. August 15th, Maggie said. Louise froze. His eyes widened. August 15th. That's the party. The 30th anniversary jubilee or whatever Savannah is calling it. It's the same day, I said. The ceremony is at 10 in the morning. The party starts at 2. Louise leaned back in the booth. A slow, wicked smile spread across his face. Oh my God, he breathed. Do you realize what is going to happen? I looked at him innocently. What? Diana is going to be holding court at her party. And at the exact same time, every news channel in America is going to be broadcasting your husband receiving the nation's highest honor. I shrugged. I suppose so. You suppose so? Louise laughed. Abby, this is nuclear. This is the ultimate MIC drop. Diana is going to lose her mind. She called him the plumber. She treated him like the help. And now he's going to be shaking hands with the commander-in-chief. I traced the condensation on my glass. I don't care about that part, I said. I'm just going to support Caleb. Louise looked at me. He raised one eyebrow. Girl, please. What? You care. You care a lot. I opened my mouth to argue, but I stopped. I looked at my best friend. I looked at my aunt. They knew me better than anyone. Okay, I admitted. Maybe I care a little. It's okay to care, Maggie said gently. She folded the letter and handed it back to me with reverence. It's okay to want the truth to be seen, Abigail. I took the letter. It felt warm in my hand. I just want them to know who he is, I said. Finally, 3 nights later, I came home to find Caleb at the dining room table. The surface was covered in crumpled balls of notebook paper. He was gripping a pen so hard his knuckles were white. He looked more stressed than I had ever seen him. How's it going? I asked, dropping my keys in the bowl. It's not, he grunted. I walked over and massaged his shoulders. They were hard as rock. Can I see? He slid a piece of lined paper toward me. His handwriting was small and precise, all caps. I read the opening. I am honored to accept this recognition. I want to thank my brothers in arms. I served with the finest men and women our nation has to offer. The Navy taught me discipline and honor. I put the paper down. It's good, I said. It's crap, he said. He dropped the pen. Why? Because it's not me. It's what they expect me to say. It sounds like a recruiting poster. I pulled out a chair and sat next to him. Then make it you, I said. How? What do you actually want to say? If there were no cameras, no president, just the truth. Caleb stared at the ceiling fan spinning above us. The silence stretched out. I want to say that Harris and DeVito didn't come home, he said quietly. Harris and DeVito. The names he whispered in his sleep. I want to say that I think about them every day. That I don't deserve this medal because they're not here to get theirs. They were the brave ones, Abby. They stayed. I reached out and took his hand. Then say that, I said. Say exactly that. He looked at me. His eyes were dark and vulnerable. There's something else, he said. What? I want to say that the person who saved me is not in a uniform. My heart skipped a beat. I want to say that she fixed something in me no medal can represent. That she taught me what courage looks like in a quiet room. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. This man who spoke in grunts and nods. This man who expressed affection by changing my oil and fixing my disposal. He wanted to say this to the world. Caleb, I whispered. He hesitated. He pulled his hand back slightly. I've been thinking about it, though. If I mention you, and your family is watching. Yeah, I said. They will know. Know what? How I see you. How wrong they've been about you. About us. I sat back. I understood what he was asking. If he kept the speech generic, he could protect our privacy. He could keep the world separate. But if he talked about me, if he talked about us, he would be holding up a mirror to my family. He would be showing the world the love they had failed to give me. It would be a declaration of war, or maybe a declaration of independence. Write what you want to write, Caleb, I said. He looked at me for a long moment, searching my face. You sure? He asked. This might change things once it's out there. We can't take it back. I'm sure. I told myself I was saying yes because I wanted him to be authentic, because I wanted him to speak his truth. But deep down, in the place I didn't like to look at, there was another reason. I wanted them to hear it. I wanted Diana to hear a hero say the words she never said. I wanted Savannah to hear that her boring sister was the muse for a Medal of Honor recipient. I squeezed his hand. Do it, I said. He picked up the pen. The sound of scratching ink filled the quiet room. 2 days later, the phone rang. It was 7 in the evening. Caleb was in the shower. I was reading on the couch. I looked at the screen. Mom. My stomach tightened. The old reflex. The conditioning of 34 years. I let it ring 3 times. Then I answered. Hello, Mom. Abigail. Her voice was sharp. I haven't heard from you about the party. I know, Mom. I'm sorry. The photographer needs a head count by Friday. Savannah is trying to arrange the seating chart, and your indecision is making it very difficult. I took a deep breath. I looked at the red toolbox in the corner. I can't come, Mom. Silence. A cold, heavy silence. Excuse me, she said. I can't come to the anniversary party. Don't be ridiculous, Abigail. Of course, you're coming. I'm not. Caleb has an event that day in Washington. Washington? What kind of event? A ceremony. I heard her sigh. A loud, dramatic exhale of air. A plumber's ceremony, she asked. Is it a convention? Trade show? Something like that, I said. I could have told her. I could have said, no, Mom. He's meeting the president. But I held the words back. I wanted the surprise. I wanted the shock. It felt petty and small, but I couldn't help it. Abigail, this is our 30th anniversary. This is a milestone. Family should be there. I understand, Mom, but I can't miss this. It's important. More important than your family? She asked. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The voice she used when she wanted to make me feel 2 inches tall. I looked at my wedding photo on the wall, the one with the empty chairs. Yes, I said. The silence on the other end was deafening. I see, she said finally. Her voice was ice. Well, I hope your plumber's ceremony is worth it. It will be, I said. She hung up. I sat there, holding the dead phone. My heart was pounding. I had done it. I had said no. Caleb walked into the room, a towel around his waist, his hair damp. He saw my face. How did she take it? He asked. About how you would expect. You didn't tell her what it is, did you? No, why not? I stood up. I walked over to him and rested my head against his wet chest. Because I want them to see it, I whispered. I want them to turn on the TV and see you. I want them to realize what they missed. Caleb kissed the top of my head. Okay, he said. I closed my eyes. I felt powerful. I felt vindicated. I told myself I was at peace. I told myself I was doing this for Caleb. But I was lying. I was not at peace. I was waiting for the explosion. I was waiting for the moment when I would finally win. And that desire for victory was about to lead me into the darkest moment of my life. 3 days before we were scheduled to leave for Washington, the false peace I had built around myself shattered. It started at the hospital. I was at the nurse's station, charting patient vitals. It was a busy Tuesday. The unit was full of the sounds I found comforting, the rhythmic beeping of cardiac monitors, the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum, the low murmur of conversations between doctors and families. This was my domain. Here, I was not the disappointing daughter or the plain sister. I was Nurse Monroe. I was competent. I was needed. Then the elevator doors slid open with a ding that sounded like a warning bell. My mother stepped out. Diana Thornton did not visit hospitals. She considered illness a moral failing and hospitals to be breeding grounds for germs that might ruin her complexion. Yet there she was, standing in the middle of the pediatric ward, wearing a cream-colored linen suit that probably cost more than my first car. She spotted me instantly. She marched down the hallway, her heels clicking a sharp staccato rhythm on the floor tiles. Abigail, she said. Her voice carried. Heads turned. I froze. My hand hovered over the keyboard. Mom, what are you doing here? You wouldn't return my calls, she said. She stopped at the counter, placing her designer handbag on the sterile surface. I've been busy, Mom. I'm working. Busy? Yes, with your plumber's ceremony. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. My co-workers were pretending to work, but I knew they were listening. I've been telling everyone about your wedding for months. Diana continued, her voice rising. I've been making excuses for why no one has seen you. I've been smoothing over your absence and now you're not even coming to the party. Mom, this is not the place. I hissed. Please lower your voice. Then when is the place, Abigail? Because you clearly don't want to be part of this family. You are choosing a trade show over your parents' 30th anniversary. She said trade show with enough venom to kill a small animal. I stood up. My legs felt shaky. I'm asking you to leave, Mom. When you remember what family means, you know where to find us. Excuse me. The voice came from behind me. It was Karen, the charge nurse. Karen was 60 years old, had raised 4 sons, and had zero patience for nonsense. This is a hospital, Karen said, stepping up beside me. We have sick children sleeping. We need to keep our voices down. Diana turned slowly. She looked Karen up and down, taking in her faded scrubs and comfortable shoes. Then she smiled. It was the smile of a shark. I'm so sorry, Diana said, sweetness dripping from every syllable. I'm just trying to reach my daughter. She has been very distant lately. Karen looked at me, then back at Diana. Her face did not soften. Maybe there's a reason for that, Karen said. Diana's smile froze. Her eyes narrowed. Excuse me, she repeated. I stepped around the desk before it could escalate. I grabbed my mother's elbow. I'll call you later, Please go. Diana pulled her arm away. She smoothed her jacket. I tried, Abigail. Remember that. I tried. She turned and walked away. She did not look back. I watched the elevator doors close, swallowing her whole. The unit was silent. That's your mother? Karen asked quietly. Yeah, honey. Karen said, shaking her head. I've met mothers like that. They don't change. I sat back down in my chair. I wanted to cry, but I had patients who needed me. I forced myself to type. I forced myself to breathe. She had come to my job. She had violated my sanctuary. She had come to embarrass me because I dared to say no. But that was just the opening salvo. That evening, I was in the kitchen making tea when my phone started to vibrate on the counter. It buzzed once, then again, then it started a continuous angry dance across the granite. I picked it up. 3 missed calls from Louise. 5 text messages. Call me now. Are you seeing this? Do not open Instagram. Abby, seriously, call me. I felt a cold stone drop in my stomach. I ignored Louise's advice. I opened Instagram. I didn't have to search for it. It was the first thing on my feed. Savannah had posted a photo. It was an old picture of me from high school. I was 16, overweight, wearing a baggy t-shirt and looking miserable. It was taken the day after the pageant I lost. The day after Diana told me I was the smart one because I certainly wasn't the pretty one. I looked at the caption, when your sister misses your parents' 30th anniversary to attend a plumber convention in DC, skull emoji, priorities, I guess. Family first. Except for Soam. I stared at the screen. 200,000 likes. I read the comments. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop. OMG, that is so sad. Some people just don't care about family. Is that really her? She doesn't even look related to you. Jealousy is an ugly disease. I felt like I was drowning. 2 million people. 2 million strangers were looking at my worst moment and laughing. They were judging my marriage. They were judging my heart. Caleb walked into the kitchen. He took one look at my face and crossed the room in 2 strides. He took the phone from my hand. He read the post. His jaw tightened until a muscle popped near his ear. Plumber convention, he said quietly. She doesn't know, I whispered. She will, he said. In 3 days, everyone will. But that didn't help me now. Now I was just the ugly sister, the ungrateful daughter, the joke. My phone buzzed again in Caleb's hand. He looked at it, then handed it back to me with a grim expression. It was a text from an unknown number, but I recognized the context. Saw Savannah's post. So sad when children turn out wrong. Your mother deserves better. Carolyn. Carolyn was my mother's bridge partner. A woman who had known me since I was 5. It wasn't just my family anymore. It was the whole town. All of Savannah was watching and judging and taking sides. And I was losing. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan. The blade spun in a blur of grey. Darkness pressed against the windows. I couldn't close my eyes. Every time I did, I saw the comments. She doesn't look related to you. Ungrateful. Priorities. Caleb shifted beside me. He was warm and solid, but tonight he felt miles away. You're spiraling, he said into the darkness. I'm not, I lied. You are. I can feel it. I turned my head to look at him. His profile was outlined by the streetlight filtering through the blinds. What if they're right, Caleb? Who? Everyone. What if I am the problem? What if I'm the one who holds on to grudges? What if I'm the one who expects too much? I felt a tear slide down my temple, into my hair. Maybe I am ungrateful. Maybe I should have just gone to the party. Maybe. Stop, Caleb said. I can't. Yes, you can. Listen to me. He propped himself up on one elbow. He reached out and brushed the tear from my cheek. His thumb was rough. You're asking the wrong question, he said. I sniffled. What's the right question? The question isn't what if they're right. The question is what do you know is true? I blinked. What do I know? I don't know anymore, I whispered. Yes, you do. Deep down. What do you know? I closed my eyes. I searched inside myself, past the hurt, past the shame, past the noise of 2 million strangers. I know I tried, I said softly. And I know nothing was ever enough for them. And I know I deserved better. Caleb nodded. I opened my eyes. I looked at the man who saved 12 lives and never asked for credit. I know I married the right person. He kissed my forehead. That's what you know. Hold on to that. Everything else is noise. I tried to hold on to it. I tried to anchor myself to his belief in me. But the noise was loud. It roared in my ears like the ocean. The next day was the day before we flew to Washington. I needed groceries. We had no milk, no coffee, nothing for breakfast. I told Caleb I'd be fine. I told him I just needed to run to the store for 20 minutes. I needed to feel normal. I needed to do a mundane task to prove to myself that my life was not falling apart. I drove to the supermarket 3 blocks away. I kept my head down. I wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. I pushed my cart down the produce aisle. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The store smelled of floor cleaner and ripe bananas. Normal. It was just a normal Tuesday. I reached for a vine of tomatoes. Oh my God. The voice was high and excited. I froze. Are you Savannah Bell's sister? I turned slowly. A woman was standing there. She was young, maybe 22. She was holding a phone. Yes, I said. I knew it. The woman squealed. I saw the post yesterday. That was wild. Can I get a selfie? I blinked. A selfie. For my followers, she said, stepping closer. This is so random. Before I could say no, before I could move, she was next to me. She raised her phone high. Say cheese, she chirped. Click. She pulled the phone back and started typing immediately. OMG, just ran into the sister who ditched her parents' anniversary. #awkward #Savannah drama. I stood there, paralyzed. This stranger did not see a person. She saw content. She saw a prop in my sister's story. She looked up from her phone. So, is your husband really a plumber? That's kind of sad. Something inside me snapped. Not a loud snap, a quiet, terrible breaking. I dropped my basket. The tomatoes rolled across the linoleum floor. I turned and walked away. Hey, wait, the woman called. I walked faster. I pushed through the automatic doors. The humid air hit me like a slap. I ran to my car. I fumbled for my keys. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped them on the asphalt. I picked them up, scratching my knuckles. I got inside and locked the doors. I tried to put the key in the ignition, but I couldn't find the slot. My vision was blurry. My breath was coming in short, sharp gasps that didn't fill my lungs. I can't breathe. I dropped my forehead onto the steering wheel. The leather was cold against my skin. A stranger in the grocery store taking my picture to mock me. This was my life now. I was a meme. I was a villain. My phone rang. The sound made me jump. I looked at the screen. Caleb. I answered. Abs, he said. You okay? You've been gone an hour. I can't. My voice broke. I can't do this. What happened? A stranger in the store. She recognized me. She took my picture. Caleb. She laughed at me. There was a silence on the line, heavy and dark. To post where? He asked. Where do you think? I started to cry. Ugly, jagged sobs that shook my whole body. And then the truth hit me. I wasn't crying because of the stranger. I wasn't crying because of Savannah. I was crying because I realized I had been lying to myself. I told myself I was going to the ceremony for Caleb. I told myself I was at peace. But I wasn't. I wanted to go to Washington to prove them wrong. I wanted to use my husband's medal as a weapon. I wanted to hurt them the way they hurt me. I wanted vindication. I wanted revenge. And that meant I was no better than them. I was playing their game by their rules. And I was losing. Caleb, I gasped. I don't think I can go tomorrow. What? To the ceremony? I can't. I can't be on national TV. Not now. Everyone will be watching me, judging me, waiting for me to react. I'll ruin your day, Abby. He said, his voice calm. This isn't about the ceremony, is it? No, it's about everything. I thought I was done wanting them to see me. But I'm not. I'm just as stuck as I ever was. I'm just a little girl waiting for her mother to clap. I sobbed harder. Come home, Caleb said. I can't drive. I'm shaking. Then sit. Breathe. I'm coming to get you. He hung up. I sat in the parking lot. People walked by with their carts, normal and happy. They didn't know that inside the grey sedan, a woman was falling apart. I had lost the battle with my family years ago. But today, in a grocery store parking lot, I lost something more important. I lost myself. I didn't know who I was anymore. I wasn't the strong nurse. I wasn't the supportive wife. I was just a ghost haunting a life I didn't feel worthy of living. And tomorrow I was supposed to sit next to a hero. I closed my eyes and waited for the only person in the world who still thought I was worth saving. Caleb's truck pulled into the space next to my car. He didn't park perfectly. He left the engine running. He got out and opened my door. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask what the woman said or why I was crying. He just reached in and unbuckled my seatbelt. He pulled me out of the driver's seat and into his arms. I buried my face in his work shirt. It smelled of grease and sawdust and Old Spice. It smelled like safety. I'm driving you home, he said into my hair. We'll get your car tomorrow. I nodded against his chest. I couldn't speak. He helped me into the passenger seat of his truck. The upholstery was worn and cracked. The floor mat was covered in dried mud. The drive home was quiet. I watched the city of Savannah pass by through the window. The Spanish moss dripping from the live oaks looked like grey rags. The grand houses with their manicured lawns looked like stage sets. This was the place that formed me. This was the place that broke me. Why did I still care after everything? Why did Diana Thornton's opinions still weigh more than my own happiness? I don't know who I am anymore, I whispered. The words felt heavy in the cab of the truck. You are my wife, Caleb said. He didn't take his eyes off the road. But who is she? I asked. Who is your wife? Is she the daughter they rejected? Is she the sister who isn't pretty enough? Is she the nurse? Who am I when no one is watching? Caleb didn't answer. He reached across the console and took my hand. His grip was firm. He knew he couldn't answer that question for me. That was the one question I had to answer alone. When we got home, I went straight to the bedroom. The suitcases for Washington were standing in the corner. They looked like accusations. I sat on the edge of the bed. The room was dim. The evening light was fading, turning the walls a soft grey. I reached under the nightstand and pulled out an old photo album. It was a small one, just a few plastic sleeves holding memories I had stolen from the main family albums years ago. I opened it. There was a photo of my 4th birthday. I was wearing a party hat. I was reaching up toward my mother, holding out a piece of cake. But Diana was not looking at me. She was looking down at Savannah, who was sitting on the floor playing with the wrapping paper. Diana was smiling at Savannah. My hand with the cake was suspended in empty air. I flipped the page. Christmas. I was 7. I was holding up a drawing I made. Diana was looking at the camera, her chin tilted just so to catch the light. She was not looking at my drawing. I flipped again. Easter. 4th of July. First day of school. I saw the pattern. It was so clear. I didn't know how I missed it. In every single photo, I was reaching. I was leaning toward her. I was performing. Look at me, Mom. Look what I did. Look what I made. And in every single photo, she was turned away. Usually toward Savannah, sometimes toward a mirror, but always away from me. I was 34 years old, and I was still that 4-year-old girl holding out a piece of cake to a woman who was not hungry for it. Then I turned the page and stopped. It was a photo I had almost forgotten. I was 10 years old. We were at Tybee Island. In the photo, I was kneeling in the wet sand. I was not looking at the camera. I was not looking for my mother. I was looking at a sandcastle I had built. It was a complex castle with towers and a moat. My face was dirty. My hair was a mess. But I was smiling. It was a private smile. A smile of pure, unadulterated pride. Diana was not in the frame. Savannah was not in the frame. It was just me and something I had made with my own hands. I ran my finger over the glossy image. That girl, that 10-year-old girl, she didn't need approval. She had worth because she created it. I remembered when that girl disappeared. It was the pageant. The year I turned 16. The year Diana said God blessed her with one beautiful daughter and one smart one. That was the year I stopped building castles and started building a resume to prove I mattered. I closed the album. I stood up and walked out to the back porch. The night was hot and thick with humidity. The cicadas were screaming. Caleb was sitting on the swing. He had a beer in his hand, but he hadn't opened it. I sat down next to him. The swing creaked. I've been chasing something my whole life, I said. He looked at me. What is that? The moment Diana looks at me the way she looks at Savannah. He nodded slowly. And it's never coming, Caleb. No, he said softly. It's not. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't lie to me. That's what I loved about him. But here's the thing, I said. I realized something looking at those photos. What? Even if I went to the ceremony tomorrow, even if they saw you on TV, even if Diana called me crying and apologizing, even if she threw me a parade, yeah, I would still feel empty. Why? Because their approval would not fill the hole, I said. The hole isn't about them. It is about me. I've been looking for them to tell me I'm worth something. But they can't. They don't have it to give. I thought about what Aunt Maggie said. It was never about my worth. It was about her wounds. You cannot buy bread from a hardware store, I whispered. And I cannot get love from a woman who only loves mirrors. Caleb set the unopened beer on the floorboards. He turned his whole body toward me. So what now? He asked. I took a deep breath. The night air filled my lungs. I go tomorrow. Not to prove them wrong. Not to get vindication. Not to make them sorry. Then why do you go? Because my husband is receiving the highest military honor in the country. And I am proud of him. I'm going for us. Whatever they see, whatever they think, that is their business. I am done making their feelings my responsibility. Caleb reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. His hand lingered on my cheek. You sure? I'm sure. I felt something shift in my chest. The heavy stone of anxiety that I had carried for weeks, for years, cracked and crumbled. I felt light. I looked up at the stars above the Georgia pines. They were indifferent and beautiful. They didn't care if I was pretty. They didn't care if I was a nurse or plumber's wife. They just shone. "Let's go pack," I said. The next morning, the sun came up bright and relentless. I stood in front of the mirror in our small bedroom. I was wearing the navy blue dress, the one from my graduation, the one Diana called safe. It fit me perfectly. It was modest and clean and strong. I looked like myself. Caleb walked in. He zipped his garment bag. He caught my eye in the mirror. "You sure you want to go?" he asked one last time. I turned around. "I am sure." "Because you don't have to. We can stay here. We can order pizza and watch movies." I smiled. "I want to go, Caleb. For the right reasons this time." He looked at me, really looked at me. "What changed?" he asked. "I stopped trying to prove something," I said. "I'm just going to be there for you. For me. For what we have built." He nodded. He seemed to accept that. "There's something I should tell you," he said. "What?" I changed my speech. I paused. "Changed how?" "I added the part about you. The one we talked about." My heart skipped a beat. The part about courage. The part about loving despite rejection. The part that would be broadcast on national television. He watched my face, waiting for a reaction. "Good," I said. "Good?" he asked. "Yeah. Say what is true, Caleb. Whatever happens, happens." He pulled me close. He smelled like soap and starch. "You're different," he said into my hair. "I feel different." Good. Different. Finally, different. We grabbed our bags. We walked out of the rental house and locked the door. We didn't look back at the empty driveway where my car Saturday. We looked forward. 4 hours later, we were at 30,000 feet. I looked out the small oval window. Georgia was a patchwork quilt of green and brown below us. The house where I was not pretty enough was down there somewhere. The high school where I was the other Thornton girl was down there. The hospital where my mother humiliated me was down there. It all looked so small from up here. Louise and Maggie were in the row behind us. Louise was already asleep, his mouth slightly open. Maggie was reading a magazine. I felt Caleb's hand on my knee. He gave it a squeeze. I pulled my phone out of my purse to switch it to airplane mode. A notification popped up on the screen. Instagram. Savannah had posted a story. I hesitated. Old habits die hard. My thumb hovered over the screen. I tapped it. The video was shaky. It showed the backyard of my parents' house. A massive white tent was being erected. Men were carrying ice sculptures. Finally coming together. Savannah's voice chirped. "It's going to be the event of the season. Mom is doing an interview with the local news right now. We are so blessed as a family." I watched for a second. I saw my mother in the background, speaking to a reporter. She was gesturing with her hands, playing the role of the matriarch perfectly. Blessed. I looked at the video. Then I looked at the man sitting next to me. The man who had scars on his shoulder from carrying his friends. The man who was flying to the White House to be honored by the president. I closed the app. I didn't block them. I didn't delete the account. That would be a reaction. That would mean they still had power. I just turned the phone off. I put it in my bag and zipped it shut. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. The hum of the engines was a steady roar. We were ascending. We were leaving the gravity of Savannah behind. I was ready. Whatever happened tomorrow, I was ready. Because for the first time in 34 years, I was not bringing my mother with me. I was bringing myself. The morning sun in Washington, D.C., was different from the sun in Georgia. It felt sharper, cleaner. It streamed through the hotel window and hit the brass buttons of Caleb's jacket lying on the bed. I sat in the armchair, wrapped in a white hotel robe, watching my husband. He was standing in front of the full-length mirror. He was wearing his dress blue uniform. I had never seen him in it, not once. The dark fabric was immaculate. The white belt was perfectly adjusted, and on his chest sat rows of colorful ribbons that told a story I was only just beginning to learn. He adjusted his collar. His hands were steady, but I saw the way his jaw worked. He looked like a stranger. He looked like a statue of a man I thought I knew. "You okay?" I asked. He met my eyes in the mirror. "I feel like an imposter," he said quietly. "You are not an imposter. You are the man who did those things." "I'm just a plumber, Abs." I stood up and walked over to him. I rested my chin on his shoulder, avoiding the sharp edges of his insignia. "You are a plumber and you are a hero. You are allowed to be both." There was a knock at the door. Louise and Aunt Maggie burst in. Louise was wearing a suit that was slightly too shiny, and Maggie was wearing her Sunday best with a hat that commanded respect. "Okay, people," Louise announced, clapping his hands. "Are we ready for the most extra day of our lives?" He stopped when he saw Caleb. His mouth dropped open. "Damn," Louise whispered. "Okay, Captain America has arrived." Caleb cracked a small smile. Maggie walked over and smoothed Caleb's sleeve. She didn't say anything. She just patted his arm, and her eyes were wet. My phone buzzed on. The nightstand. I walked over to it. I knew who it was. The timing was too perfect. I picked it up. A text from Mom. "Heard you are in Washington. I don't know what kind of ceremony a plumber has, but I hope it is worth missing your family." I stared at the words. 2 days ago, they would have ruined my morning. They would have made me second-guess everything. Now, I just looked at them like words on a page. Black pixels on a white screen. "I hope so too, Mom," I whispered. I put the phone face down. "Let's go," I said. The car ride to the White House was a blur of security checkpoints and iron gates. But when we walked into the East Room, everything sharpened into high definition. The room smelled of history. Floor wax and old wood and thousands of roses. The chandeliers overhead were so bright they hurt my eyes. The room was filled with uniforms. Generals with stars on their shoulders. Senators. Gold Star families holding framed photos of their lost sons and daughters. An usher led us to the front, the honor row. I sat down. Caleb sat beside me. He was rigid. Then the Marine at the door announced, "The President of the United States." We stood. The room went silent. When the President began to speak, I stopped breathing. He spoke about duty. He spoke about sacrifice. Then he called my husband's name. Staff Sergeant Caleb James Monroe. Caleb stood up and walked to the front of the room. He stood at attention. The military aide began to read the citation, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." I listened to the words. I heard details Caleb had never told me. I heard about 45 minutes of suppressive fire. I heard about him carrying 3 wounded men one by one across 200 yards of open terrain under heavy machine gun fire. I heard about him going back into the kill zone a 4th time to retrieve the body of a fallen corporal so his family would have something to bury. I looked at my husband. He was staring straight ahead. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Beside me, Louise was crying openly. Maggie was gripping my hand so hard her rings dug into my skin. The President stepped forward. He placed the blue ribbon around Caleb's neck. The gold star rested against his uniform. The Medal of Honor. The room erupted. A standing ovation that felt like it shook the floorboards. Caleb shook the President's hand. Then he stepped to the microphone. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. He looked at it. Then he looked at me. "Permission to go off script, sir," he said. The President smiled and nodded. Caleb put the paper away. He gripped the podium. "I accept this honor not for myself, but for Corporal Marcus Harris and Sergeant First Class Antonio DeVito, who did not come home." He paused. The room was dead silent. 3 years ago, I thought courage meant running toward gunfire. I thought it meant ignoring pain. He looked directly into the camera. The red light was on. He was speaking to the nation. But I have learned there is another kind of courage. My breath hitched. "My wife is sitting in this room right now," he said. Every head turned, every camera swiveled. I saw myself on the monitor in the corner. I looked small and terrified. She taught me that true courage isn't about combat. It is about choosing love, even when your own family tells you that you are not enough. I covered my mouth with my hand. It is about standing alone at the altar because the people who should love you unconditionally chose not to be there. It is about building a life with someone the world underestimated. He took a breath. Abigail Monroe is the bravest person I know. And I am not talking about battlefield brave. I am talking about the courage it takes to stay soft in a world that wants to make you hard. To keep loving when love has not been returned. To choose herself, finally, after 34 years of being told she was not enough. He pointed at the medal on his chest. This medal represents what I did in combat, but my wife represents why I survived it. Thank you. The silence held for one heartbeat. 2. Then the room exploded. The president was clapping. The generals were clapping. I could not move. I was weeping. Not the polite tears of a guest, but the deep, shaking sobs of a woman who had been holding her breath for a lifetime. Caleb walked back to me. He ignored protocol. He ignored the president. He walked straight to his wife. He pulled me out of my chair and wrapped his arms around me. The metal pressed hard against my chest. I love you, he whispered. I love you, I choked out. The cameras were flashing like lightning. The whole world was watching. And somewhere in Savannah, Georgia, a party was ending. I didn't know the details until we got back to the hotel hours later. We walked into the suite, exhausted. Caleb took off his jacket and hung it carefully on the chair. I sat on the bed and finally turned my phone back on. It vibrated instantly, and then it kept vibrating. It danced across the duvet cover. 110 missed calls. 47 voicemails. 500 text messages. I opened Instagram. My notifications were broken. They were scrolling so fast I couldn't read them. But I saw the clips. The internet works fast. Someone had already screen recorded Savannah's livestream and spliced it with the broadcast of the ceremony. I pressed play. On the left side of the screen was my parents' anniversary party. Ice sculptures. Waiters with champagne. My mother looking triumphant in a gold dress. Savannah holding her phone out, narrating to her followers. So, welcome back, you all. My parents' 30th. I can't even describe the vibes. On the right side of the screen was Caleb at the podium. Then in the video, a comment popped up on Savannah's stream. Is that your brother-in-law on the TV behind you? In the video. Savannah frowned. She turned around. The television mounted on the wall of my parents' living room was tuned to the news. Caleb was on the screen. Even when your own family tells you that you are not enough. I watched Savannah's face in the video. The color drained out of it. It went from spray-tan bronze to sheet white. The camera shook. Mom, Savannah whispered. My mother turned. She saw the TV. She saw the plumber. She saw the medal. And she heard the words, standing alone at the altar because the people who should love you unconditionally chose not to be there. In the video, the party guests stopped talking. You could hear a pin drop. 50 of Savannah's elite were staring at the screen. My mother's face crumbled. It was not sorrow. It was horror. It was the realization that her narrative was being rewritten on national television. Turn it off, my mother hissed in the video. She lunged for the remote, but Savannah was still streaming. And the comments on her video were scrolling so fast they were a blur. That's the plumber. Wait, that's the sister you made fun of. He's a war hero. You guys are monsters. Unfollowing immediately. The video ended with Savannah dropping her phone. The last image was the ceiling of my parents' living room and the sound of my mother screaming at someone to cut the feed. I put my phone down on the hotel bed. Louise was sitting in the chair, scrolling through Twitter. You're trending, he said softly. # the plumber # Team Abby. It's #1 in the country. I looked at Caleb. He was unbuttoning his shirt. He looked tired. I picked up my phone again. I scrolled through the missed calls. Mom. Mom. Then I saw a text from a number I rarely heard from. Dad. I opened it. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I'm sorry. 7 words. It was too little. It was 30 years too late, but it was there. I looked at the other messages. Mom, call me immediately. This is a misunderstanding. Mom, we need to do a joint interview to clear this up. Savannah, you ruined my brand. I hope you're happy. Savannah, people are telling me to kill myself. Abby, pick up the phone. I felt a ghost of the old panic. The urge to fix it. The urge to call Savannah and comfort her. The urge to apologize to Mom for outshining her. But then I looked at the medal sitting on the nightstand. The gold star hanging from the blue ribbon. It represented courage. I picked up my phone. I did not call them back. I did not reply to the texts. I did not make a statement to the press. I turned the phone over and set it on the nightstand. I walked to the window. The lights of Washington, D.C. were spread out below us. It was a city of power and history. Caleb came up behind me. He wrapped his arms around my waist. He rested his chin on my head. How do you feel? He asked. I leaned back into him. I thought I would feel happy, I said. Like I won. And I don't feel like I won. I just feel free. Caleb kissed my temple. That's better than winning, he said. I looked at my reflection in the glass. I saw a woman in a hotel robe with messy hair and no makeup. I saw the same woman who had sat in the bridal suite 10 weeks ago, waiting for a family that never came. But she looked different now. Her shoulders were lower. Her eyes were clear. She was not waiting anymore. I turned away from the window and the city lights. I turned away from the phone buzzing on the nightstand. I turned toward my husband. Let's order room service, I said. I'm starving. Caleb smiled. The slow, warm smile that was just for me. Pizza or burgers? Both, I said. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? I looked at the medal. Then I looked at him. Us. I said. And me. I turned off the lamp. The room went dark, but the city lights outside burned on, indifferent and beautiful. For the first time in my life, I did not need anyone to tell me I was shining. I knew. And that was enough. Reflective outro, conversational, powerful, natural CTA. You know, we all want that moment of vindication. We crave that scene where the people who doubted us finally see the truth. Where the ones who made us feel small are forced to watch us shine. We want the apology. We want the regret. But the most powerful lesson from Caleb's and my story isn't about revenge or public humiliation. It's about the quiet, revolutionary act of letting go. Maybe you're standing in front of your own empty chairs right now. Maybe you've spent years auditioning for a role in your family that was never truly cast for you. Maybe you've broken your back trying to be good enough, smart enough, or successful enough to finally earn a seat at a table where you were never truly welcome. But here's the hard truth that I finally learned. You cannot buy bread at a hardware store. You cannot get emotional nutrition from people who don't have it to give. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how much you achieve. You cannot force someone to see your value if they are committed to misunderstanding you. The tragedy of the Thorntons wasn't that they didn't love me. It was that they loved their image more than they loved their daughter. And your worth. It's not a negotiation. It's not something you have to earn through accolades, titles, or marrying the right person. Real family isn't defined by whose DNA you share. It's defined by who stands beside you when the room goes dark. It's defined by the people who show up, who stay, and who remind you of who you are when you've forgotten. So, I want to ask you, are you exhausting yourself trying to please an audience that's never going to clap? Are you holding on to a relationship simply because of history or obligation, even though it hurts you? Sometimes, true courage isn't just about facing an enemy on a battlefield. Sometimes, true courage is simply the strength to stop trying. It's the bravery to walk away from the people who hurt you and toward the people who heal you. I'd really love to hear from you. Is there a relationship in your life that you've been holding on to, hoping it will change? Or have you found your own chosen family who loves you exactly as you are? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I'm reading every one. Thanks for watching. Take care. You've got this.